Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tyre Straits podcast. I'm here with my co-host Scobbert.
Yes, hello and welcome. What are we going to be talking about today, Dootson?
I think today we have to cover testing, with it
Do
being
we
the...
have to?
Yes,
You make
we
it
do,
sound like a
unfortunately.
chore.
It's a chore, come on. But no, it's good fun. But we have to talk about the first week of testing, which just happened in Bahrain. Before that, I will just say, if you do enjoy this podcast, then please follow us on whatever application you're listening to this on, Spotify or YouTube. And there is also an Instagram account,
Yes, indeed.
which is Tyre Straits Podcast.
Make sure to go and follow us on there.
Yes. Right. Now, on to general news before we start on the actual testing. A brief cover, because I'm not particularly... I don't have anything to say much about it at the moment, is that the new season of Drive to Survive has been announced. Which will be about the same, on par with any other Drive to Survive season. I don't know your
What do you?
opinions,
I was just going to ask, what kind of what do you expect some of the narratives to be? Because I reckon they'll make a big thing out of Oscar and Lando, and obviously Max then joining as well. Obviously there is a big thing to be made of it. It was the championship battle, but they're definitely going to over dramatize it like they normally do, and then yada yada yada, bada bing, bada boom.
They're definitely going to make a large a big rivalry thing between Oscar and Lando. I think that they'll do the inevitable episode on Alpine,
yes,
they do every year. I think there'll be
choice.
one on Haas and the rise of Haas, because they actually had a pretty good year, and probably do an episode on Behrman struggling earlier in the season and then cut to his P4 in Mexico. Probably. I'm hoping
on that front, they might just do an episode on all the rookies, and obviously their starts. Because obviously Hadjar had his spin on the formation lap of the first race of the season, and then went on to score a podium.
Example.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel like they'll probably do an episode focusing solely on the rookies and their sort of highs and lows.
Yeah, I'm thinking also an episode on the woes of Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, the whole Liam Lawson being swapped out. I completely forgot that was this year, because that was like two races in.
Exactly. I was going to say. It
or
happened
last year,
immediately. Sorry. But yeah, so a lot to speculate about. I mean, if you're anything like us, you don't really care that much. But I still watch it. I still watch it because it's, F1 content, something to pass the time with. And there are moments, especially with the editing and stuff, where they do cook a little bit. So
it's a good bit of entertainment.
Exactly, entertainment is what it is.
Really good filler for the week after testing before the races start.
Yes,
because you've got a week where you've gone from a bunch of F1 to no F1 to then the actual start of the season, and that can be filled with Drive to Survive, and that it's a good filler. But it's definitely worth watching the races, and not all of it is portrayed in the most realistic light. That being said, it's great fun. It's a fun watch. I can't.
Yeah, no, there's no. You can't take away from what it is as an entertainment. Yeah. Is a source of entertainment media. It's not, it's not a documentary, is what I'm saying. You can't treat it as such because it is it's a dramatization. It's like the movie adaptation of a historical event. They have to over dramatize it a little bit just to sell it on the in terms of the excitement
concept,
factor. Yeah, but
right.
Obviously, testing has happened this week, but before this week, we also had the super secret private test in Barcelona. And on this topic of Barcelona, today F1 announced that Barcelona will be rotating with Spa, with Barcelona being on the F1 calendar in 2028, 2030, and 2032. I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I'm not against it being in rotation, but I would so wish it was any other track but Spa that it was rotating with. Because for people who don't know, after 2026, both Spa and Barcelona are going on a rotating track, rotating contract, basically. So 1 year will be Barcelona, the next year will be Spa, next year will be Barcelona, and that goes up to 32 currently. Which is a good way of getting more tracks people love in a shorter amount of time, and they've done it before. They've done it with the German Grand Prix, they did it with the European Grand Prix for a bit, I think.
Yes, the European Grand Prix as a concept was basically just to have a rotating track, somewhere in Europe.
Yeah.
It visited tracks that F1 sometimes hadn't even visited before, like Donington Park.
Yeah, which, I mean, great venue. I've only ever been there.
The race that they had there, the single race they had there, it was it 1993?
91. It was a 91 or 93.
No, 92, wasn't it?
92. Oh, I was completely wrong.
I was saying because it was Prost in the Williams. But that race was
it was it was 93. It was definitely 93.
93. Sorry, yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, whatever.
It's been a long day. It's been a long day. We record this in the evening. I must preface.
Moving back to the actual rotation of the Barcelona and current tracks, I understand it's a way to get good, more good tracks on the calendar, but it's unfortunate that they're rotating one great track and one which hasn't been as great as of late. You can hear more about that in our last episode.
Oh yes.
But the and Barcelona is okay, but it's the fact that those two are rotating when there are so many worse tracks that have contracts until like 2040.
Yeah.
And it's just, I understand money runs the sport, but it's also just kind of upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, to give my insight here, I am absolutely fuming because not only are we losing Imola for the Madring, we are now losing Spa as a permanent fixture on the F1 calendar. And while we'll have it flip-flopping between that and Barcelona, it's just not that's the worst trade I could ever possibly imagine. You think like the trade like you get I receive meme is like you get Miami, Las Vegas, and like Madrid. Like I get fucking Spa yearly rotation. It's like that's not a worthy sacrifice to lose Spa and Imola obviously previously as well. It's just it annoys me because Imola and Spa are two of my favourite tracks on the calendar. So to think that we've already lost one and now we're half losing another, I am furious.
It's just kind of upsetting that to make way for the newer tracks, they've been binning off not even like semi-modern but like not enjoyable ones. They've been binning off like classic tracks.
Yeah.
Like since 2020, we've lost Istanbul Park. We've lost Porcard. We've
lost any semblance of a French Grand Prix, any semblance of a German Grand Prix.
We've lost now Barcelona partially, Spa partially, and we've lost Imola now, which Imola was only added back in like 2021.
Yes,
but the races have been okay enough there to at least keep it around a little more.
But the issue is in the same amount of time that you've just mentioned that we've lost all those tracks, we've gained Jeddah, we've gained Miami, we've gained Las Vegas. And you just Qatar, and you just think that's just not worth the trade. And I know it's about money. It's all about money.
It's all about.
But at the same time, they just cannot. With Spa especially, Spa's like the final nail in the coffin for me personally, because I will admit that obviously the race is there as of late, like especially last year, and obviously just how wet Spa can get. It can be very touch and go with whether or not you're actually going to get a good race there or whether you get a race at all. But Spa as a venue is possibly one of the most iconic racing venues in the world and possibly the greatest, depending on the type of racing we're talking about. But so the fact that we lose that, but a track like Miami gets its calendar extended all the way, like its contract extension is until like 2030.
It's 2035. 2035 is Miami.
And that absolutely stinks.
But no, the other thing is, I mean, Spa's always been tough on money, is the other thing. And I can understand that we can't hang around and just fill this like calendar with all old tracks, because then you'd never make way for anything new or you wouldn't try anything new. It would just be, oh, we've done it this way forever, and so we got to keep doing it. But when there is evidence that there have been good races and good stuff there, there is no point in binning it off without there being an external incentive, and unfortunately that has been money.
I mean,
which is just disappointing.
As well as that, the other thing that sort of annoys me about it is, I understand the business point of view where a track like Spa just does not generate as much revenue. The issue with Spa is geographically it's next to nothing.
Fucking nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, ticket prices are among the cheapest on the F1 calendar to counteract this, just to get people to come along. But the rate that in terms of actually tuning in, even like when I was on holiday last year, I still tuned in to watch the Belgian Grand Prix because there is just something magical about Spa that you sort of pan through the trees and then you see the track, and might be raining, might be misty, and it's just got such a sort of power to it. But also, what I was going to say is, while I understand it from a business point of view, what I just can't forgive is the slop that's replacing it. Like, if they made a really good track in Miami, I'd understand, I'd appreciate it. But the fact is, they're just banging together whatever they can. You think Herman Tilke obviously has his hits and his misses. But now, whoever's developing the tracks at the moment, they've just employed someone to bang some pots and pans together and, hairpin there, long straight, hairpin, turn it there. And it's just the layouts are just not good.
It's a lot more about the location and the money in the location than building a good track, which is a shame. But we shouldn't waffle on too much about tracks, considering
we have rather gone down a tangent there, but it is upsetting to think that we're losing Spa and Barcelona to a lesser extent.
Right, now on to
business
testing. So, testing 1 has just happened, the first week, running from the 11th to the 13th, and for whatever reason, only the final hour was broadcast here in the UK. I don't know if that was the same everywhere, but I just think it's a bit odd. We've talked about this already, I'm not going to keep going.
Yes.
However, it's time to talk about the actual results from it, and it's looking very mixed.
Yes.
From a lot of perspectives, because there's a good number of people who are saying the new regs are fine, the new regs are bad, there's teams trying to change things, there's teams that have just crumbled. Like, it is shaping up to be quite a unique season as everyone finds their footing with the new regulations.
Yes.
And we should probably start with what some of the drivers have been saying about the regulations themselves.
Indeed. So one of the things I've noticed, and I don't want to sound like a boomer here at all, all these young drivers, they don't know what they're talking about. But one of the things I have noticed is the older and more previously successful drivers, the ones that have been in the sport for the longer time, have achieved more, they tend to be the ones that are more critical of these new regulations and the way the cars drive. Hamilton, Verstappen, and Alonso have all been rather, vocal about their distaste for the new rules, with Alonso saying that, I don't remember which corner it was, but they're going in 50 kilometers an hour slower, and then Hamilton saying that it's slower than Formula 2. It basically feels like we are back in 2014 when the new regs came in and you had the Caterham that was genuinely slower than a GP2 car in the same era. So it does feel like, as the pinnacle of motorsport, as F1 has always been billed, we have regressed a little bit. But then again, at the same time, I guess it's more about the racing it produces than how fast the cars are. So what's your take on it?
Speed, I definitely think, does not equal good racing.
Yeah.
You can have cars go insanely fast, but if they are impossible to follow, there's no point. Because
if you want really high speed racing, watch NASCAR, watch IndyCar. That's where you get that.
But the difference is, with NASCAR, they're going or IndyCar, they're going really high speed, and they're really damn close to one another, and the circuits are so simple that they can follow.
Yes.
Because that's the thing is
F1 is about the skill of the driver combining themselves with the car. It's a symbiotic relationship, and obviously it's the same for other motorsports divisions. But the way cars like Indy or NASCAR are designed and developed, they are designed to sort of cater to these speedway tracks that they race on. Whereas F1,
IndyCar's an odd one because it has
Yeah.
two specs of cars, one for
speedway
ovals
races.
and one for like actual road courses. But we are kind of stepping outside at this point. So it's the fact that if the cars can't follow, there's no point in making them faster. So there's nothing wrong with the drop-off in speed. And I think that's just such a change because for the longest time, F1 has been, we're going to make the fastest cars possible. We're going to make them faster and faster and faster. And so people like Hamilton and Alonso and Verstappen and you know, some of the older ones probably as well, like Hülkenberg and Perez have seen the cars get quicker and quicker in time. And now they're hitting a point where they're realizing the old tracks and the street circuits can't handle the speed well. It's better to dial it back a bit. But that's such a change that there's a lot of discourse about this.
I mean,
and the discourse isn't just exclusive to the older drivers as well, because, for example, Oscar Piastri has come out saying that it feels almost a lot like F2 cars, especially in the start procedures, which we will get to eventually, because that's a whole other thing. But Norris and Russell are currently the two main younger drivers who have come forward saying positive things.
Yes, I was going to say the main advocates of the new regulations, with basically their kind of rebuttal against what the old guard have said, being that these are new cars, they are going to be different. It's about adapting rather than sticking to what you know. And I feel like it is a slightly churlish thing to say to someone like Hamilton or Alonso, who have obviously seen regulation changes about 4 times each in their careers, and they've had to make that change to the way they approach things. But at the same time, through their experience, and obviously having seen all those regulation changes, to think it does worry me when they, of all the people, are the ones that are the most sort of critical of these regulations, because like I say, they've seen the regulation changes before and they've had to adjust, and the fact that they're particularly against these ones is somewhat of a worry is all. But the thing I saw the other day, just while I was looking on Instagram, was it was a onboard with Hülkenberg, and this is what really worries me personally about the cars going into this season is he started at the straight, and by about halfway down the straight, his battery was completely drained already, and obviously that then meant that the engine lost horsepower while it's halfway down the straight, and you just think that isn't going to produce very good racing, especially when these cars are now 50-50 power split between internal combustion and electric power.
It can definitely make it so that energy conservation is probably going to become a much larger thing. It's already been a thing in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it is going to be a bigger thing going forward with the larger MG UK. But I'm not certain on how much, because obviously we haven't seen any racing. The things people have been saying, and when it is people like Verstappen and Alonso and Hamilton making these claims, it makes you concerned, but it's really hard to tell before anything actually happens, because it could be a situation of they're just past their time.
Yeah.
It could be just a regulation that does not agree with them and the way they like to drive. And so you don't know, because if out of the gate the cars are fantastic, we get fantastic racing, but the old guard of who are used to a completely different driving style have fallen off a cliff, for example. This is completely hypothetical. I'm not saying
absolutely, yeah.
But if they've fallen off a cliff, does that mean that it's a bad regulation if just the older drivers who are not so used to it or aren't adapting as well don't like it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a completely valid point and could well be an eventuality in the end. We simply don't know until we get to Albert Park, obviously. for the first race of the season. But it is just a worry, like I say, no matter who you hear, there's always going to be that little voice in your mind until we see those cars on the grid in Australia saying, the experienced drivers have concerns about these cars, especially, and obviously just the things that you're able to witness as well. I saw a practice start with several cars on the grid, and I think only one was able to set off at the lights. Everyone else stalled, I think it was, or at least failed the starting procedure.
I will be mentioning that shortly.
Yeah, I was about to say, which is, even from what we can see ourselves, it's very concerning.
Now, the only other thing I want to mention before we move on to specific teams and timings and stuff is that when it comes to what the drivers have been saying, there's been a lot of quite negative rhetoric just generally.
Yeah,
about
it's no matter where you look at like what factor we're discussing.
People saying it's Formula 2 cars from several drivers. There's been GP2 jokes up and down the grid, and then also Verstappen claiming that they are Formula E cars on steroids.
Yeah, that was the quote I was thinking of earlier.
Yeah, and the regulations are possibly even anti-racing, which is not promising, but what, as we've spoken, could be, it could be nothing. However, if the cars are harder to overtake, and if there is some kind of like problem along those lines, what do you think they should do? Because obviously they've got these new regulations. How would they, if like the fundamental concept of how this regulation is set up leads to racing that is just boring to watch, like there is poor overtaking, poor action, what would they do to remedy that?
I mean, obviously, when we first saw this new set of regulations, the changes that were being made to the cars, I think from my point of view, and obviously what I've seen from friends and other fans as well, it was a generally positive sort of reception to these new regulations when they were first announced and the changes that would be made. So, people were already going into this with the mind that, things are probably going to be better, which is maybe not necessarily how things have shaped up thus far. I mean, for me, the way I look at it is obviously during 2022, when we first entered the this ground effect era that we're leaving now, obviously some of the teams struggled a lot with porpoising, where the ground effect sucks the cars to the ground. It was causing them to bounce up and down, which was obviously uncomfortable and led to poorer performance down the straights. And that caused Mercedes to make a complaint to the FIA and try to, get some sort of change to the regulations on that front. And I feel like, obviously, if there's more than one team now that's dealing with something that's, caused by the regulations and not just their adaptation of the regulations being incorrect, then it is a worry that, well, no, it's not a worry, it's something that I think is going to put pressure on the FIA and F1 management if multiple teams now are saying these cars are shit. We need some sort of major change to be done to the rules, whether that be letting us run sort of power units similar to last year's, where we have less reliance on the electrical power so the batteries doesn't drain immediately, or, something like that, some sort of regulatory change. I feel like that might actually resonate more if it's multiple teams and they're putting that pressure on. Because if the teams walk, then there's no racing. That's the bottom line.
That's true. That's
so
true.
Like,
I don't think it will get that bad.
No, I'm just saying theoretically, like if there was that pressure from the teams, the FIA would have to do something drastic.
Oh, for sure, because they can't show the race when there's no cars on track.
Yeah,
but fair enough. Now let's move on to teams and their general performances. To which I want to start with a few words of respect. That's saying it is a true tragedy to witness the passing of Aston Martin and the crumbling of every last bit of hype that had been built up over the off season. Where it has hit. They hit the track, and both drivers, both Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll, were the two slowest drivers, with Alonso being nearly 4.5 seconds slower than the quickest time. And I understand that this may be teething issues with the power unit, and it may actually rip when they sort that out. But also, that is concerning.
Now, I saw something earlier, actually, of Adrian Newey, he's now team principal of the Aston Martin Formula One team, and the chief designer, who designed the car and its very, innovative-looking aerodynamics. And he is furious with Honda because of the limitations. It seems like, from what we're getting so far, and just the difference in the top speeds as well, the Honda power unit seems to be the weakest when it comes to power output. On the straight, I think it's about 40 kilometers an hour slower than the other teams, or at least the front-running teams.
I'm pretty sure the Red Bull...
Red Bull was the fastest.
It maxed out at 344 kilometers per hour.
Yes.
And the Aston maxed out at 326.
As it's 20, almost 20 kilometers an hour.
No, 326. 326.
Yeah.
So it's at 18 kilometers per hour slower.
Which is, it's not quite as bad as what I first thought from just trying to remember the graphic I saw, but it is still deplorable.
It's still not good.
So it looks like, from what we can see, it is mainly a power unit issue for Aston Martin at the moment. It could be related to the aerodynamics, but I think the issue is they're not going fast enough to know. That it does seem that that Honda and Alonso once again have entered a deeply abusive and toxic relationship that is going to end in tears.
It seems like as soon as Honda will absolutely cook up the best engines possible, but the second Alonso steps near them, they just seize up. They just cease functioning.
It literally does. I don't think it can even be called a joke anymore, because it's now happening again, and it's immediately after Honda have had a run of Formula One success powering Red Bull.
Which, if they were going to flop at any time, it would be into a new regulation.
Yes.
However, that does not make it any less disappointing.
It is. It's deeply disappointing. And just to sort of close the chapter on Aston Martin, it's not over yet, because today Alonso said that while obviously they're not particularly happy with the way the car is behaving right now at all, he does believe that with time they will have the fastest car on the grid. I don't know how long his time frame is for that claim, but
maybe 50 years.
Yeah, something like that. I was about to say a few centuries, but it is to think that's where their mindset is. Hopefully, as a team and not just as a driver speaking on the team's behalf. Then that does hopefully give at least a little bit of light in this dark time for us die-hard Alonso fans.
Yeah, but hopefully it gets better. I'm hoping the engine, they sort something with the engine, because it would be good to see.
The engine feels good, much slower than before.
It would be good to see another engine do well, because while I don't think Audi are going to set the world on fire, and Aston with the Honda, there was a hope that they might pull something out of the bag, but you just never know.
Yeah.
And speaking of the engines, let's talk about some of the other teams and other engine manufacturers. So, as expected with based from the shakedown, Mercedes topped the shakedown and did the most laps. And once again, Mercedes have the two fastest times in this test, with Antonelli putting in the fewest actual laps, but the fastest time across the full week, with a 1:33.669. And that is, like, insane, considering the Mercs were the only ones to break into the 1:33s. They're not too far ahead.
No, it's about 3/10 roughly.
It's about 3/10 above anyone else, was, like, Russell. But Antonelli was, like, a good 6/10 above Hamilton in his Ferrari in third. But it's showing that Mercedes are possibly going to still be the ones to beat. However, there is also still the looming threat of the fuel compression changes. So it was thought to begin with that Mercedes were sandbagging a bit because they didn't really do all that much in the first couple of days. But on day 3, both of the fastest laps were set. And so it's just like they got to the end of the week and just sent it. That, or they were just doing race runs on the first day or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible that obviously other teams weren't running at the same level that Mercedes were, or that the Mercedes is just that good. But obviously, like you say, it really does come down to the worry of is the sort of threat of a powertrain change going to change things for them? You know, if they have to change the fuel compression rate on their engine, is that going to drop them and their customer teams down the order significantly? Or are they still going to be, maybe not by much or as much, but are they still going to be ahead, you know?
The other top team that I want to talk about right now is actually Ferrari.
This year is our year.
I'm not saying anything yet. I am waiting to see Australia. However,
I really hope so, because I'm a Ferrari fan and I'm a Alonso fan, and I really don't know if I can rely on the latter this year.
If both crumble, I think it'll be over.
You'll find me at the end of this year, like you'll look for me while we're recording. I'll be found in the shed, like having not eaten for a week, and just like with a full beard and having lost about 20 kilos of weight.
You'll be a shell of a man.
I will be a shell of a man. So
but
yeah.
No, Ferrari, shocking. It was revealed that the engine that they used for Barcelona is the same one that they've been using for the first week of testing, to my knowledge. And that is phenomenal in reliability, considering that each Ferrari driver did over 200 laps.
Yeah. Did Ferrari put the most laps in overall during the testing?
I
think so. I think when it comes to this testing week of testing, I think they put the most laps in collectively.
Possibly. I thought McLaren did, just by a tiny bit.
It might be McLaren, but
that's fine.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. But no matter what, they've put in a significant amount of laps. Yeah, no, it is McLaren by like 2 laps. Yeah. But
there's like a shocking reliability.
It is. That's incredible reliability, which is not words that would normally be associated with the Ferrari brand in Formula One.
Yes, and the other big thing with Ferrari is the start procedure. And
you said we get to this.
Essentially, it was brought up last year by Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur that there was an issue with the start procedures and that it's going to cause problems when the new regulations come. Lo and behold, sorry, he was ignored. Like, he brought this up, he was flat out ignored, like, on his concerns, and so Ferrari made a workaround with their 2026 car. Lo and behold, during the practice starts at this week's testing, all of the cars struggled to get away, besides the Ferraris. Which has now prompted other teams to try and change the start procedure, namely McLaren, who struggled incredibly bad with it.
Yes.
And that kind of brings me on to a question of, for you, in your opinion, do you think that they should change the start procedure? Because one team has out-engineered the others, And there is a large camp of teams that want this change. McLaren at the front of it, obviously. But do you think it is worth changing or not?
I feel like this is evocative of any kind of like such issue in motorsports where one team has interpreted the rules better than the others. The others immediately cry foul play and begin making efforts to get the advantage of the other team curbed. You think whether it's whatever form of motorsport, especially when you have new regulations coming in, and it's been seen in Formula One time in, time out. The one I think of especially is like the double diffuser in 2009, where you had teams like Ferrari literally trying to get in the Brawn garage just to take photos of the double diffuser because they hadn't put one in, and there was efforts to try and curb Brawn, make the double diffuser an illegal component on the car. So I feel like there has always been an element of this, no matter in what motorsport flight it is. But I think in this regard, it's different because this is not a technical issue for as far as like FIA regulations go. I mean, this is just how they are, this is race procedure. And as far as I'm aware, nothing has been changed since they announced the regulations for this season. I don't even think they're doing anything differently to how they were doing it. At least from the race procedure side of things, rather than the technical side, I don't think they're doing anything differently to what they've been doing for the last few years now. So, in this instance, while I feel a lot of the time it is a case of maybe one team has interpreted things better than the other, and it's made a huge gap in the competition. I think in this instance, it's a case of one team is prepared better for having better foresight rather than being able to read between the lines better, and I don't think they should be punished for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's my exact thought. McLaren have kind of taken the safety grounds of it, in the sense that there's an awful lot of teams that are stalling on the grid, and like a huge amount of time for them to have to rev the car to launch, to build boost. But it's not. I think Ferrari have just come up with a good way of sorting it, and the other teams kind of haven't. But also, it's a really odd one because this is not just like general car performance. This is the actual start.
Yeah.
So if it means that every start is going to be a bunch of people stalling and a collision happening at the start of every single race, there is some kind of reasonable grounds, I would say. But
just to add to that, like my interpretation of it is Ferrari's way of doing things is obviously legal within the regulations for the cars. So the fact that no other team has come to the same conclusion, well, obviously, like you say, Fred Vasseur was, looked over in terms of what he had to say. It was overlooked, and the other teams could have and still could, very much make changes to their car to compensate for especially now that they know what the start procedure's like, and they'll just have to, lump it. That's how it's been with other teams in the past, having to make changes to their cars. So, as far as I'm concerned, especially on this one, I don't think the FIA are going to, take blame. I think if there's going to be anything that the teams put pressure on the FIA for, like I say, going back a bit ago, it'll be something like the actual cars themselves and the way they handle, rather than the start procedure.
Yeah, I think it would more likely be the fuel compression.
Well, that too. In terms of the actual technical regulations of the cars, rather than race procedure.
I definitely think that for the start, changes to the start procedure or the technology around it, maybe if safety becomes an issue, but until then, there's no point. Even thinking about it, in my opinion.
No.
Now, we need to cover some of the smaller teams. I will just quickly say Red Bull, fairly unremarkable. They were fastest in a straight line. They had the fastest top speed.
Yes. No, they're looking like they're in pretty alright shape, I I mean,
But
obviously, lap
yeah,
times from testing you always have to take with a grain of salt because there's testing. Obviously, they're
it,
not going to be
it's
running the way they will be in a race. But Red
yeah,
Bull are
yeah.
comfortably, they're about what, seventh and ninth on the fastest laps.
Seventh and ninth, seventh
Yeah,
and
so
ninth.
like they're in a comfortable position, and obviously are
Which I
fastest on the
mean,
straight right now. So I think there's more performance to unlock for them, and that
yes,
that we will see over the next week if testing number 2. So
yes,
yeah,
second week
I
testing.
think they're in a good position. Um,
Yes,
but who do you think is also in a good position?
I think looking at testing times and how everyone's performed, I think the other team that is in a pretty good position. Everyone was kind of betting on Williams. While they may still come back with the God, like they've got a good powertrain behind them, but they haven't shown anything that impressive. Haas have been considerably like shocking with their pace and their reliability in this testing. It
Yeah,
is still quite early to tell, but with Behrman and Ocon having the their eighth and ninth fastest laps, respectively, it's not it's pretty solid on the whole. And with the Ferrari powertrain, if Ferrari really are like have everything nailed engine wise and reliability, that could be a huge benefit in this
yeah,
new
absolutely.
regulation, because we've seen at the tests previous, like at the shakedown, there were faults for the Mercedes engines already.
Mm.
And well, yeah, there were a couple of issues with uh the Haas and the Cadillac throughout shakedown. It seemed a lot less about the engine and a lot more about other aspects of the car, but
Mm.
I could be wrong on that.
Yeah,
But there is possibility that they could come out the gate swinging, as long as Ferrari is delivered on that powertrain. So it is all kind of hinging on that. Um, Other teams generally, Alpine look considerably better
Mercedes
than
is
last
treating
year.
them. The Mercedes engine is treating
Yeah,
them well, like it has been
they
for the other Mercedes customer teams.
they continue to look good. It's hard to say how good, and we won't know. Audi look very okay.
Yeah, I mean, like
Um,
we said in our last few episodes, nobody's expecting them to set the world on fire this year,
no,
but they
they
seem to be in a comfortable position, which is good to see.
they just need to come out doing fine, and that seems to be what they're going through at the moment. Hulkenberg and Bortoletto were 12th and 13th in overall fastest lap.
Yes,
Sorry, I should have said Alpine was 11th with Colapinto and 14th with
14th.
Gasly. Yeah. Williams have. It's good that they've shown up to the test, and I'm certain that a lot of this is they have just been doing so many like
Yes,
long runs and testing laps just to get like aero informations and Flovis paint on the
obviously they
car
are
and
behind
like
compared to the other
brakes and stuff
teams as
like that.
well. They're
Yeah,
they're they're
so
playing catch up now.
they are playing catch up with Albon in 15th and Sainz in 18th on fastest laps.
Yeah,
Racing Bulls have kind of unnoteworthy. It's just more testing, quite low
they
down on the
they
whole.
remain basically where they were at the end of last year, and I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll be expecting to see them in a similar position when it comes time to start the season as well.
probably. I'm not based on the pace, unless second testing picks it up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
I'm expecting it to be a considerably worse year for them compared to last year. But Lawson in 16th and Lindblad with the 20th.
20th. Yeah.
And then Cadillac have probably, from my memory, had some of the most issues out of any team.
Hmm.
With things like engine failures or like issues with the car. But they've like everyone has gotten a decent number of laps in this weekend, and it's entirely possible they're focusing more on data than anything,
Yeah.
and hence the slower times. Being 17th and 19th, and obviously we've talked about Aston. But
Yeah.
most of these other teams, it's not like there's anything particularly noteworthy to say. It's not like, there's nothing and you should ignore them, but it's more that they've just kind of got on with testing and haven't put in
Yeah.
anything blinding, haven't come up with any controversy,
We will
just
have to
get on with their day.
wait. We'll have to wait for next week. Obviously, we're testing too to
Mm.
see if they bring up anything new that we weren't expecting. Alpine suddenly pulls a 1-2. That would be something worth talking about. But There really hasn't been, like I say, I think everyone's kind of got their heads down at the moment, and the headlines have come from both ends of the grid rather than the middle of it. You know, you've got Mercedes obviously continuing the form that people but this is giving people the basis to speculate that Mercedes, or at least a Mercedes customer, are going to be the championship winning team this year.
Yeah.
And then obviously on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the Aston Martin woes and the reporting from inside there to see just what's going wrong for them. So the in-between really hasn't generated much stir. And like I say, we'll have to wait for testing 2 to see if anything changes on that one.
True. And with the other thing with the top teams is that while we can kind of look at the fastest laps and all that, there's entirely possible that the lower down teams just haven't been trying to go for a fastest lap and have just caught one this quick lap by accident.
Yeah.
Or just done a couple of quali sims earlier on in the week. But and the other thing is all the top teams are all calling each other the fastest car because they don't want to say that we've got the best car.
Yeah. I mean, like that also just feels like, aside from, wanting to not make claims that they can't back up, it also just feels like a way to possibly, especially for like teams like Ferrari have diehard fans. If you promise them a good car and you don't deliver,
you prepare for
Maranello is getting stormed, and Fred Vasseur's head will be on a pole outside Monza. So you really have to like like I say, this is only testing 1, and it's all very speculative at the moment. And like I say, headlines are really coming from either end of the grid right now, not necessarily from in between. Everyone's got their heads down and just getting on with it, and that's what the testing is for. But for us, and obviously while only an hour of it was broadcast, we've got some lovely photos where testing has given us the opportunity to see all of the cars on track finally together.
Indeed.
We've gotten to see all of the liveries were revealed. The last ones revealed last week, with the Aston Martin and the McLaren. So we've now seen every livery, and now we've also seen every livery on track. And
as such, we have decided to rank them. However, we are definitely going to make this a considerably briefer ranking, or more brief ranking, than our last episode.
Indeed.
As we waffled a fair amount with that. And this is, we'll go in reverse order, as per usual, but we'll just kind of briefly cover them, because also there's only so much we can really say about paint. But the criteria of which these are ranked is based on our own. We have not discussed this.
No.
We have just gone on what we think looks good from the reveals.
I was just going to say, basically, like with the track ranking and the driver ranking that we did, which you can see on our Instagram account, our criteria for these kind of things are possibly different, not always the same. So we are not necessarily of like minds on this thing. There are things we agree on and things we don't, and you'll see that soon. But we have both prepared our own individual ranking of the 11 different liveries. But to start us off, it is one that we agree on.
Yeah. For 11th place for the both of us is the Revolut Audi.
Yes. The way I look at it personally is, obviously, I think it was 2023, I want to say, Audi first made any...
Show day.
Yeah, they showed us a render of what an Audi F1 car could look like. Yes, and everyone sort of said, ooh, that looks quite good.
Yeah.
And then they gave us their concept livery at the beginning of this year, and it was more... Well, it was okay. It was okay.
Worse than the original render, but it didn't look bad. It was just kind of...
Yeah.
A bit...
It was a bland livery. There wasn't anything bold about it.
Bland, but they didn't have many sponsors, so it wasn't the end of the world.
Now that they've revealed their livery,
the new livery,
the race livery,
it is quite literally a car you would make in one of the F1 games.
Yeah, it's
not good.
It's not evocative of anything either. Like it doesn't feel like it's sort of certain teams like Mercedes has like the sort of tri-tip star down the engine cover. You have Ferrari with like the white and the yellow accents, depending on the year that we're talking about. Red Bull have always gone something kind of to do with their brand identity as a company. But this Audi just doesn't feel like they're like, at least in their livery, like they have any sort of particular identity. It's just a bit meh.
I don't know. I will say this. I think the back half could work. The red and black does look
It contrasts
decent.
nicely.
It contrasts really nicely, and the way the logo looks is good. But the issue is then there's a direct slice, and it just becomes like a 2008 McLaren in the front. The only one
but
thing
with none of the
I
charm,
particularly like about the front half is the red airbox. I think that looks phenomenal. But the rest of the car looks so plain.
It does.
And it still doesn't make up for the fact that it is like two car designs that have just been cut with a straight line. Like there's no fading, there's no gradient, there's no nothing.
There's nothing there's nothing to suggest that they haven't actually just cut two different designs together. Like, it's like a parent dealing with two kids that want their picture on the fridge, so they've just trimmed it down the middle and stuck them together.
Yeah.
But it just feels like a far cry and a bit disappointing compared to what we were looking at a few years ago when they first announced that they were going to be coming to F1.
Indeed. Now, in which case, shall we go on to number 10, which we also agreed on?
Yes. It is, drumroll please, the McLaren.
Yes, the now MasterCard McLaren, or McLaren MasterCard, sorry. Which is not great. It kind of just looks like the same livery from last year,
that's what I was gonna say. A lot of like jokes are made about Ferrari and Red Bull, and to a lesser extent like V-Carb, for being copy and paste with their liveries. Red Bull until this year, for the last few years, have been very much copy and paste. Every year it's the same looking thing. But McLaren, this year, it feels like by definition almost, they have literally lifted the 25 livery and placed it onto the 26 car. And I don't think it suits the 26 car as much as it did the 25 car either.
I don't even agree with that, because they've lifted the 2020... Because the 2025 car looked pretty good.
Yeah.
They've lifted it, put it onto the new car, added more orange, which isn't a bad thing, but they've added so many more colours.
Yeah.
And like in odd ones, like for example, you had the chrome wheels last year, and you had the chrome logo on the side. That was cool. That looked good. It now has these blurry coloured wheels, like... inside of the wheel. The word is gone on me. I can't remember for the life of me. It's gone. Whatever. Wheel covers. That's it.
Yeah.
But alongside that, you've got a deep blue DP World side logo.
Yeah.
And weird, almost Aston Green Allwyn branding. And on blocks. It is backgrounded like this Aston Green on certain parts of the car. And it just looks like such a downgrade.
I do have to agree with you. But yeah, it's just a downgrade compared to the last year. We've seen McLaren, and obviously McLaren has some of the most iconic liveries in the history of the sport. And while maybe this year it might not be the same case, their papaya liveries for me have not been as evocative of success and the McLaren sort of identity. I know it is the colour they identify with and has been since they first were founded, but it just doesn't, West McLaren, Marlboro McLaren, and then obviously Vodafone McLaren. Those are liveries that people still talk about today, even though the last Vodafone McLaren was in, I think, 2013.
I thought it was 12. Could have been
it could have been either one, but that's the point. They're it's been years since that they last ran that livery, and yet it's one of the ones that people think of when they think of a McLaren F1 car.
Yeah, when a lot of the time when you think of a McLaren F1 car, and most of what springs to mind is some of the older stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't mind the new Like some of their newer
Yeah,
cars,
I
that
don't
looks
dislike
really
the
good.
papaya. I just don't think it's
I
evocative as much.
No, I just don't think it's that good in this case.
Hmm.
Now, uh, ninth, we have gone for different cars. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'm happy to start. We can
Go
both
for it.
descend upon the V carb together.
The
Um,
V car.
it it just is that like obviously we did this ranking prior to recording this a few, days ago, depending on which of us you're talking about, but like
Yeah.
just trying to think of it now, like picture it in my mind, there's just nothing. Like it's such like it's so simple of a livery, but like with not a lot going on at the same time. Like
For me,
sometimes simple is strong, but in this case, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot going on. There's not a lot of design elements that sort of I go, ooh, I like that bit of it. It does feel like it is like a continuation of last year's car and the direction they went with that. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it looks as good. And it also has, like, I do think in my mind, the car itself does contribute to that, especially with that very, very wide airbox.
mm,
It just,
I
it might be down to that, but
I don't mind the airbox. I think the airbox is kind of cool. For me, it's more of the thing of take what I said from McLaren and kind of copy paste it, but
yeah,
a little better. In the sense that this kind of just looks like they took last year's livery and redid it,
that's
but
kind of it, yeah.
they then kind of made everything that was like a deep blue last time like black, or
It
like
just it just takes away from
or like a really kind of it's like a black with like a slight fade into blue at the edges, and it just doesn't look that good. Like
no.
I just think it looks a bit
The white and
cluttered.
blue looked nicer because it felt like that was the colours they were going to go with as their identity going forwards. Because V Carb is obviously a team. Oh, sorry, is obviously a team that's always struggled with identity. Since they started as Toro Rosso, they've always been the Red Bull sister team, and it is like being the child that is not the favourite, the neglected, forgotten child.
Yeah.
And they've always been they've always kind of struggled to find their image, whether it be, Toro Rosso, the sort of blue and chrome kind of colours before they became Alpha Tauri, with that sort of white, black, and then later on the red from the Orlan sponsorship as well. And then V Carb, they've now run something, maybe not markedly different in the last 2 years, but in 3 years they've ran two sort of very different liveries, with the blue and the white in 2024 being a very, very good looking livery, actually. That was one of my favourites that year. But the last 2 years have been, last year was okay, and then this year it does feel like it's just been a downward trajectory. Like you say, it's kind of copied, but the only changes of substance have not been for the better.
Yes. And yeah, I think that's about it. For me, however, while I do kind of agree on a lot of the points of the V Carb, for me, ninth place goes to the Alpine, which is just the Alpine. It kind of looks that it's got more blue than last year, I guess. But kind of Alpine, since they got rid of that gorgeous 2021 livery, it's kind of just been blue with the pink, and then they make it more pink for the first couple of races and then change it back, which I don't dislike, but I don't, it's kind of static and they're not changing anything, so there's not much to talk about. But it goes here. And while for me, in number 8 is V-Carb. We've already talked about it. We don't need to go any further into that. For you...
Yes, number 8 for me is the Cadillac. I've got to say, just before I do sort of get into the meat of it, I do like the Cadillac. I like the concept they've gone for with the split down the middle livery, and obviously that's a hark back to the BAR of I think it was 1999, with the two different liveries they tried to run that they ended up having to merge together, split down the middle. They've obviously done it in a much cleaner, nicer way, and I like that sort of simplicity with the black and the white. But I do have to say, just having seen like renders of what it could have looked like with like the yellow as well, which is a color they've identified with in other racing series, I feel like it could have looked better, and I'm almost disappointed, and that's kind of why it's so low on my list.
That is definitely a fair point. The fact that in every other motorsport, Cadillac have been either like a quite good gold for like the Hertz Team Toyota Cadillac,
exactly.
or they've had yellow, especially when their major sponsor is TWG, who their main color is yellow.
Yeah.
It would have been really cool to have a black and yellow car like the Renault from before Alpine. Like, that would have been so nice.
And I think the more subtle sort of goldy yellow that they've used in like their colours would look even nicer.
Well, that's my thing. It's like the Hertz Team Toyota kind of gold colour.
Yeah.
I think if you had the same livery, but changed the white out...
that's exactly what I think. It would look better.
So much more unique and so much more eye-catching. But
that's exactly what I was about to say.
Like, it is good, it is decent. It's not bad, but it definitely isn't my favourite. I like the split two-side thing.
Yeah.
But also, most of the time you're seeing it from the front, and from the front, it does not look too fantastic.
It looks a bit weird,
That is why I have put it in 7th.
Yes.
Just above you.
I mean, it's a good livery. I'm just disappointed that it could have been better.
Yes.
But for me in 7th place, I have put one that I feel like has been kind of samey for the last few years for the most part, but I feel like has been a downgrade compared to last year, and that is the Williams. Now, I do like Williams' current identity with that sort of deep blue and that sort of dark navy blue that they've got going on. They've got some nice colours, and with the Duracell logo as well on the top, they've made sort of quite a fun identity, and it does fit with their kind of image at the moment of that sort of team. Like I say, it's that underdog team that everyone kind of likes. They've got that affable kind of image. James Vowles as their team principal has sort of brought in this kind of lovable kind of personality as well. And obviously they've got 2 drivers that are very well liked as well. Everyone wants to see Williams succeed. But the issue for me with this livery is just the clash on the side pods with that light blue and the white. It just doesn't look as nice. It breaks up that sort of clean line with the that they had before, and that's why I just had to rank it lower, because I've liked their liveries previously, but it's jarring for me, because it goes from that sort of darkish blue sort of gradient, and then you get to the middle sort of third of the car, and then it's like 4 different shades of blue plus white, and then you go back to being that sort of deep nice blue. It just that blue for me previous years really showed off the sort of shape of the car, but yeah, now it just feels like it breaks it up and makes it quite jagged looking in my mind, and that's why I just don't like it.
That's fair. I will hold my tongue on it.
Yes.
For you, in 6th.
Yes. I've gone for the Alpine. Obviously higher than yours. The Alpine, like we both said, it looks nicer than it did last year, and I also think it suits, like, they've gone for something very similar to last year, but it suits this chassis and these cars more. And I've got to say, like, I do like it. I liked last year's as well. I think it's an improvement from their 24 car, massive improvement from their 24 car. And I'd venture to say, in my mind, I prefer it to the 2021 car, which I know is controversial. But hear me out. If they swapped the pink with yellow, which would make it immediately resemble the 2000s Telefonica and Mild 7 livery, people would lose their minds.
I understand, but from my personal point of view, I think that it would no longer feel like Alpine.
No, it would feel like Renault, but they're obviously one and the same.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah. Renault seem more and more like they want to get rid of Alpine.
Yes.
Which actually, that's something that I forgot to put in the notes, but I do want to briefly bring up in a bit.
Yeah.
I think if they changed the pink with red, like the same red from the 2021 livery, I think that would look pretty
either way, like I say, the blue and the pink is their identity right now. And I like it. And like I say, like you say, if they changed the pink out for something else, people would lose their minds. And that's why I think it's a good livery, and it's a strong one as well. So yeah, that's number 6 for me. But number 6 for you?
Number 6 for me is the Aston Martin, which is an odd... This is probably the one I've flip-flopped on the most, because when I first saw it, I thought it was probably the worst behind Audi. Sorry, just ahead of Audi. But the more I look at it, the more I think it is okay. It's pretty nice looking. I really like the light blue rear wing for Aramco. I think there's certain aspects of it, like the black and the yellow does work really well. There's just something about how matte and plain it looks that I kind of don't like. It's almost like there's bold spots on the livery where I feel like there should be something there and there just isn't. And I'm certain that will change in time, but at the moment it kind of just makes it look a bit unfinished and a little too... I don't want to say fake, but like, it doesn't look like Aston. Aston have always been like shiny and sleek in their liveries, and I feel this fits more like a lower down car. You know, it feels like something that isn't backed by a car manufacturer.
I'll hold my tongue for now because I've got more to say on the Aston later, as I'm sure will become obvious. I've got it higher up, but to move things along to number 5, once again, one that we are in agreement on. It is the Red Bull.
Yeah, and the Red Bull car is probably the inverse of the Aston for me, in the sense that when I first saw it, I thought, like, this is the most gorgeous livery I have ever seen, and it slowly sunk down. Partially because of other teams releasing liveries that I just prefer. The other one is that it looks a hell of a lot better in promotional material than it does on track.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the thing is, like I said earlier as well about Red Bull and previous years, they've had a very, very samey livery. This has been, for me, not only a departure, but also a massive improvement. And that's sort of like, obviously with the Ford brand coming in now, with that sort of metal flaky kind of blue that we saw, it reminds me of those earlier Red Bulls as well, which is one of the reasons I really like it. Those sort of, like the sort of 2009 to, I want to say 2014 with the Genesis sponsorship. That era, well, Renault first, and then obviously the Genesis on the side for a few years. It just looked really good, and that's what I like a sort of return to almost with that blue colour.
It's the white lettering around the actual logos and it being a lighter blue rather than it being we're trying to disguise that it's mostly carbon fiber. Which I think is a considerable improvement.
For me, like this year, out of all the liveries, I think compared to last year, this one for me gets the award of most improved, you know?
Yeah, fair.
Compared to at least where they were, is what I mean.
That's fair enough. I'd have to think about last year's properly to be able to say mine.
Yeah, but to move along.
Moving on to number 4, we have also agreed on number 4, which is
the Ferrari.
Yes. Now, Ferrari have had some ups and some downs as of late with their F1 cars, but you know what?
They've always had a good livery.
This is the first time, and I'm probably one of the few people to ever say this, I don't hate the HP logo on this.
I have to agree with you.
Because it is in a completely isolated white section.
Yeah, exactly.
It is on the back fin. It looks pretty good.
And yeah, the blue just doesn't clash as much with the white as it did with the red on the last year's car. It just, it looks more neat and a bit more tidy. And it is also evocative of like the sort of 2016, I want to say, with that sort of white airbox. And even if you want to go back further, like 2004 with the white airbox. I think the more it's like for what you said with the Red Bull and the sort of difference between on-track and promotional material, I feel like the Ferrari is the inverse. Because when I first saw it, I was less convinced by it. I would have probably swapped the Red Bull and Ferrari in my ranking, which for me as a Ferrari fan feels dirty to do. But now that I've seen it on track as well, I've got to say I do like it, you know. And like you say, it just feels like a more competent, tidy livery. The sort of HP, you know, they're going to have that sponsorship whether we like it or not. It's bringing them in money, and they've managed to incorporate it into the livery in a much cleaner way. And that for me is immediately a big improvement.
Is a massive improvement. Right, on to the top three,
Yes, the
and
podium
start it.
positions.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'm happy to start. For me, number 3 has got to be the Mercedes. Much like Ferrari, Mercedes tends to have typically a relatively nice livery, and this year's one is very good looking, I must say. For me, it's very, very close between the top 3. I don't want to make it seem like I've got one decision that's way higher than the others. It is close, and the Mercedes is really tasty looking. That the sort of the AMG sort of rhombuses on the top of the side pods, that looks really nice. Yeah. I know a lot of people are sort of saying it was Adidas, which obviously it's not, but I mean, it looks really nice, and
the stripes are such a nice touch.
And obviously the existing design elements that we're used to with the stars on the airbox sort of fading out towards the back of the car.
Yeah.
It's just a very clean, very nice livery that sort of fits with Mercedes' current identity, where obviously they've always been the silver arrows, and then they had that period, sort of 2020, 2021, with the black W15, was it? And the W16?
Yeah, I think so.
I could be completely wrong. I'm not a Mercedes. I've never been like a huge fan of Mercedes, so I don't know for certain. But
well, this is the
it fits their current sort of trend since 2024 of that sort of black and silver together, you know?
Yeah.
And I think this is the best incarnation of it so far.
This is definitely the best. I think the combination of, because there was
not W15, W11. That's the one I'm thinking of.
No, because the W15 was
that was like last year.
2024.
No, the year before. Sorry, year before.
Yeah, but
I was going to say I couldn't remember for the life of me.
The Mercedes does look really good. The silver on top with the black sides, it looks distinctly Mercedes, combining those two periods of their style from when there were the silver arrows back in like the turbo hybrid era to the ground effect era black livery. Having a good combination of the two, it just looks so sleek.
It does.
But it is not my number 3. My number 3 is the Williams, which I think the best aspect of it is the light blue and white. I love it. I think it's so good looking. The like fade down to it on the side pod, I think it adds a nice splash of color and stops it from being so, because everything on the Williams is white and blue, and is that same shade of blue. So bringing in a middle ground between the two makes perfect sense. But I think they should probably have used it in more areas, just like for highlighting. It's a great color. Like that on that color of blue on the rear wing, I think would be fantastic. But I don't have much more to say to that. They've still got the Duracell battery airbox, which is one of the best design decisions ever when it comes to Formula One marketing. Yeah. Everyone knows the Duracell airbox. And also, I really like the wheel covers. I know they are for some scummy gambling website or something.
They look good though. That's one of the better things for me personally.
I do like the wheel covers. I think it is a very nice looking car for Williams.
Yeah.
Now I will quickly rattle off that Mercedes was my number 2 car. So everything I said, like you've said about Mercedes and I've said about Mercedes, carries over to my number 2 position. But for you, the silver medal has gone to?
It's gone to Aston Martin. It's sort of the inverse, where obviously I had Williams lower and you have it higher. You've got Aston Martin a lot lower and I've got it a lot higher. And I've got to say, I think the Aston Martin is a really nice continuation of what we've seen in the last few years. Especially when, like, 2022 and 2023, I think the Aston Martin was gorgeous, really good looking, really good with the brand identity, that sort of British racing green colour. And then 2024 and 2025 were okay looking. And the 2026, I feel like it's a very competent design. The elements come together really nicely. And while obviously there's room for more sponsors and things to be added, the way that they've sort of incorporated what they've done before with the green and obviously the yellow highlights, but the way they've gone about it is different and it's new and it feels new. And that's what I like. It's not the case of they've gone with what they've had before and just copy and pasted it. Much like Red Bull, they've actually made a change to their livery, and Ferrari, they've made a change to the livery that's more significant, where they've still got that green base, which is, like I say, what their branding is. But the yellow and the way they've incorporated those yellow highlights is very different. Like the sort of geometric disintegration fade on the yellow highlights on the side pods and things like that. And then obviously the existing elements of like you said, the Aramco sponsorship on the wing. It all comes together for me to form quite a nice, good looking livery. And that is all the more, and I mean, for me, I've seen renders of what the Aston could have looked like. And I am slightly disappointed to see that it doesn't look like that, because there were some really nice sort of like chromy green ones that looked really good. But I've got to say, I do still really like the Aston Martin, and it just makes it all the more pitiful that it is so low down in terms of actual performance.
That is fair, and I will say that this has been a very tight year for the liveries. They've all been
pretty good.
Fantastic. They've all been pretty good. Besides the Audi and the McLaren, I'd say that on the whole,
top nine up.
They've at least been decent.
Yeah, but to round it off and give our gold medal to someone, I think if you asked me, well, if you told me 3 years ago that this would be my number one, I'd have laughed at you.
And it can only be one. It is the TGR Haas. Because
it's so good!
It's so good. And TGR joining the team just adds to that. It looks... I'm not even sure if it looks Haas anymore. It looks Toyota.
But the way they've incorporated it just looks amazing.
It looks fantastic. The massive Gazoo racing on the back, the rear wing looks fantastic. The mix of red and black going on along the side pod. Pretty much every sponsor being red or black. It is beautiful.
It all feels really conducive. There's nothing clashing.
Yes.
Everything comes together really nicely. It's not got the issue with the McLaren where you've got the different sponsors with their own different colours that just make it all a jumbled up mess. Everything is so clean. Everything is so consistent. And it just makes for a really nice, competent looking livery.
Not an ounce of space has been wasted.
No.
There is something interesting to look at in every part of it. And there are 4 colours on the whole car. And that is white, red, black, and the tiny bit of blue that comes with the Play and Go logo.
Yeah.
But even then, it's a tiny bit on the rear.
It's not so much that it clashes.
Yeah, it's not like a massive logo.
You hardly even notice it compared to the white and black contrast, and then the red highlights that come in.
It just looks so clean. Out on track, it looks so sleek. It is an absolute certified masterpiece.
How long were you thinking about that one for?
Literally, no time at all.
Oh, okay, fair enough. But yeah,
I've heard it so many
we
times.
said, but like we said, the liveries this year have all been consistently pretty good. Like I said a minute ago, the top 9 up have been really good, especially compared to the last few years. I think we've got a nice sort of different blend as well. Like with the regulations saying that they have to have a certain amount of the car painted, which was meant that we haven't got so much exposed carbon. It looks, the teams obviously put a lot more effort into the liveries, and it shows. And I think they all look really nice.
It really helps with identifying them and the style and identity. The logos, on the other hand, it is kind of upsetting that on the timing tower, there are now 5 teams that all have white logos.
Yeah.
Which is just a little bit more bland, but realistically, could be worse. I'm not too against it.
No. But,
but I think that's everything.
That's everything we have to say on that.
Tiny bit longer than we were expecting, but it's all fine. Now we need to go on to the discussion of other series, and there has been some news and stuff. So do you want to kick this off?
Yes. Yesterday we saw the NASCAR Cup Series Championship kickoff with its main event, the Daytona 500, which I will admit I was surprised to see Tyler Reddick win and do so in such a crazy way on the last lap. The fact that they didn't throw the caution out just to give us a good final lap of racing, because the Daytona 500 is renowned for having carnage on the last lap, which normally results in a caution being waived. The fact that we got green to the finish line, even though every car behind the leader pretty much got caught up in a massive accident, it was cinema, and it's been the best Daytona 500 for me in a few years now. So since I've been a NASCAR fan, at least, so it was great. And Also, it was nice to pay tribute to the late Dale Earnhardt, who obviously was sadly and tragically killed at the 2001 running of the Daytona 500 25 years ago now. So, yeah, it's been a really good week for NASCAR and the start of the series. And it's just, yeah, what a way to start. If that's what we can expect going forwards, then I am very excited for the Cup Series. And I think it's something that I've got to implore more people to really take seriously, as well as just tune in for at least even the highlights. Just watch the highlights from the Daytona 500 and just see the chaos and the carnage that was brought. But
I think that kind of point rings true for any motorsport series. If you're interested in watching it, you can always watch the highlights, and there will be some posted, like online and stuff like that. Like, people will, even if they're not official, someone will have collated some video footage.
I more just mean that on the basis that a lot of people, especially Europeans, don't take NASCAR very seriously. They sort of have the predisposition that it is, a bunch of rednecks turning left for 200 laps, which I can't necessarily argue with, but also that is part of what makes it so good. You get such close racing that you don't get elsewhere because of the nature of super speedway racing. So, yeah, NASCAR is great, and the first race of the season has been really great. But continuing on in America with the other premier...
in America.
Yeah, the premier...
IndyCar.
The other premier motorsport series in America, IndyCar. It's been announced that they're going to be adding another race to their calendar called the Freedom 250.
Which is a entirely, it seems, politically driven move.
Yes.
Which I'd rather not comment on the actual politics behind it, because that could go on for a while.
We could get into that, which we're not going to.
It's I much more want to bring up that they have announced this race as a late addition to the calendar in January, like back end of January, and they're expecting it to be run in August around Washington DC. The streets of Washington DC,
as basically the equivalent of a street circuit in Formula One.
It is a street, it is a street track. IndyCar has plenty of street tracks. Some of them are great. I mean, the season starts at St. Pete, and it's always a good.
That's
intro.
Normally quite good.
But it's just strange how late they're leaving.
Yes, and also, the big issue is they haven't actually created a layout yet.
There is no track design has been put forward, or at least revealed. It is currently just, we want to do a street circuit around Washington, so do a street circuit around Washington. Do it this year. But it's just a bit foolish from the organisers and whoever's backing it.
It does feel very American to say, yes, let's honour our, the anniversary of our great nation, and we're going to do it at the last minute, possibly to a point that it never happens at all.
Yeah. But
there really isn't much else to say, because there's nothing else known about it,
Because
no track design has been...
Really?
All that's happened so far, no news or anything, all that's happened is they've just said we're gonna do it, and then there's been radio silence for the month and a half since.
It has been announced, and that is it.
Yes.
But the only other news to come out of IndyCar is the grid has finally been fully announced, with Roman Grosjean coming back to the seat at Dale Coyne Racing.
Yes, he was. I saw that on his Instagram account, actually.
Yeah. He'll be driving the number 18 alongside Dennis Hauger in the 19. But that's about it from that.
It should be a competitive season, regardless of the comedy japery of the Freedom 250.
IndyCar's always a good watch.
Yes.
It's quite interesting to see on the whole, and there are definitely tracks that are considerably more enjoyable to watch than others.
Yes.
But on the whole, IndyCar is definitely worth giving a shot, especially when certainly for us, you've got the commentary from Will Buxton, and he's pretty damn good as a commentator.
Yeah.
Now.
Even if you only tune in for the Indy 500, it's always going to be good fun, and it's worth just getting some friends around, and just letting it run, talking about it, enjoying it, and just really see for yourself what it has to offer.
Yeah. All right, now on to Formula E. I just want to bring up, there's the Jeddah E-Prix doubleheader has just been and gone. There's not tons to say about this one because it wasn't particularly event filled. Where the Saturday race was won by Pascal Wehrlein, which was both races kind of went in the same manner where there was a lot of front of pack fighting, but whoever was best on energy conservation to begin with then shot ahead and built a gap and then kind of just stayed ahead. Everyone was playing catch up and couldn't. It wasn't nothing too crazy besides Mortara's massive fumble with the start where he dropped down a bunch of positions, but even then he climbed back up to a decent position. And the Sunday was won by Antonio Felix da Costa, which good to see him get a win at his new Jaguar team. But also it was a very similar race in the fact that once he had built that gap, you kind of knew, especially because he'd built that gap without using his attack mode, so you knew that he could just he popped it early to use that extra power to just fuck off ahead, and that's it. Race is done. You know he's gonna win. The only other noteworthy thing to come out of that was Pepe Marti saying some unfavourable language, which I don't know the specifics of, so I'm not going to go into that right now, but that may be a follow-up for next week. And then there was the Evo sessions, where we got to see influencers go around the Jeddah Corniche circuit.
Oh yes, I saw this as well. I saw this as well.
And while I'm not the most knowledgeable on most of the
individuals in
who
question,
did it, I do want to mention that the influencer who had been backed by Lola Yamaha was Izzy Hammond,
daughter of Richard Hammond.
And
it's good to see that it runs in the family.
It seems to run in the family that electric cars and Hammonds just don't mix.
No.
Because she had quite a nasty crash, which thankfully she was okay from. But I did think that was quite funny.
It does raise, concerns though, because one of the things that we said after reacting to this ourselves, just when talking about it earlier, was motorsports is not a showground for influencers. It's one of the issues with Formula One on the grid walk now, where you see these people who obviously have no interest in Formula One showing up just to say they've been to a Formula One race, but especially when letting them drive racing cars, because while a Formula E car is obviously not a Formula One car, unless you're Max Verstappen, they're still very fast pieces of machinery that if you do not have the experience or necessarily the facilities to drive a car like that, if your neck is not strong enough to tolerate the G-force of a car going that quickly around a corner, you are not in a position to drive a car like that. No matter at what speed. It's not rental karting where you show up to a track, have a bit of fun for a few laps, and then you're done. It's physically demanding and requires a baseline knowledge of motorsports that you only get through going through years of, karting and then early sort of car racing, junior formulas like Formula V or Formula Ford, then moving upwards towards things like Formula 4. You need that experience to be able to drive a car like that competently. No influencer is just going to get in a car like that and immediately be quick.
No. And that's why it's a bit of a bad idea, but it's entirely publicity. So
it is, exactly.
If they want those crashes to happen, they just need to make sure that they try and reduce the power.
Yeah, they need to make
of it, which realistically they had for these Evo session things. They were I don't know if it was direct reduction of power or possibly just the complete gap in skill. But the average one of them was lapping a good 20 seconds slower a lap than the actual races.
But to move things along into the world of rallying, it was the Wally.
Wally?
Where is he? Where is he?
Where's Wally? Well, he's in Sweden.
He's in Sweden.
And down at Umeå, and it was a really tight competition between the Toyota cars. I remember saying last week, I was like, "Oh, it's possible Solberg's going to sweep." I was dead wrong, but in the sense that first,
it kind of seemed like that was going to be the trend.
it was first stage. He goes out in ahead, and I'm like, it's Solberg's sweep, and then all of a sudden it becomes an incredibly tight and competitive set of days with lots of powder being built up over the stages. Very icy section, so you got a lot of strange
Mm.
like wins and like stage wins and people that, like, for example, Takamoto Katsuta was leading going into day three, which was incredible. Like that would have been fantastic to see him get his win, but it was, alas, not.
Not
It ended up
it did
being
not end up happening, unfortunately.
no, it ended up being won by Elvin Evans, the Welshman, and it was a Toyota 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is very much further showing just how dominant they have been at this
Yeah,
track or this
it is
rally.
genuinely starting to get kind of incredible how that's like
But
it's going to be obviously an incredible season watching them go, but just how far ahead they are, the other teams have got a lot of work to put in to be able to make that ground up.
so far this year, the only one who's been like anywhere somewhat close is Adrian Formeau in
Yeah,
his Hyundai. But
yeah. I was gonna say the
that's
Hyundai is the only one that's like
yeah,
relatively close.
there's a bit to go. I don't know. I'd say Josh Armstrong in his M Sport Ford isn't too far behind, but he is very new.
Yeah.
So it's quite, it's getting used to that. But
Moving along.
it was won by Elvin Evans. You had second place was Katsuta, third place was Sami Payari, and then Oliver Solberg in fourth. So now Elvin Evans leads the championship. But moving on, very brief one. We've got MotoGP. Obviously, we've got the Thai Test and the Grand Prix coming up soon in Buriram. And Firmin Aldeguer, who had broken his left femur during one of the earlier, I think it was like an off-season incident. I remember talking about it in a couple of past episodes. But he's announced that he's going to be missing the Thai Test and the Grand Prix to further recover from this, which it is a smart decision, but it is such a shame because after a brilliant rookie season in winning a race on his Gresini, it kind of killed a bunch of the momentum. So any momentum.
I mean, breaking your femur is definitely, fracturing your femur is definitely a way to take the wind out of your sails.
Yeah,
even just as a person, let alone in your championship prospects.
Yeah, it's like recovering from that is going to take a bit of time. So undoubtedly, when he does return, it's going to be a bit of a slower season, which is a shame that he's possibly going to be hampered before he even gets a shot at this season.
Yeah,
but then again, there's a lot of good prospects for people this year. The Ducati still looks strong. Honda look to have a massive surge. Aprilia still look good. Basically, if you're not riding a Yamaha, you have some hope of doing well. And yeah, that's all from MotoGP. And the only other thing is that from Alpine, which I was talking about earlier,
yes,
with Renault not wanting the team anymore, Renault have just announced that they are pulling the Alpine hypercar division for WEC. I believe they are still going to certain one-off races, things like the Daytona 24.
Yeah,
but they're no longer staying in hypercar after this year's series.
It's a shame because it's not even been that long.
No, it's been a ridiculously short amount of time that hypercar has even been a thing, and they're pulling the plug because of the new management. It is entirely the actual Renault management seem more and more unimpressed by the amount of money spent on the motorsport division and the lack of return.
It is a huge shame because obviously it's a trend that we've seen in Formula One for a while. Obviously Renault, dropped the Renault name even to bring in Alpine. In 2021?
No, it's 21.
Yeah, 2021, yeah. And you just think, they've just been on a downhill as to how much involvement they want. Obviously, pulling out of their own engine manufacturing and moving to Mercedes for this year as their power unit supplier. It's quite sad considering the high highs that Renault have had before. So yeah,
but it's just really upsetting to see, and hopefully, hypercar is still full of you've got new people joining McLaren and Ford in 27. Pretty sure Mercedes joining, backing someone, or maybe just joining their own car in 27 or 28. So it's not like Hypercar is going to be,
Yeah,
it's
gonna if anything get better, and
it's
Alpine are getting left behind on that, which is a
I'm
shame.
I am gonna miss it because I do love the Alpine Hypercar.
It was cool.
Especially the design of the rear lights.
Yeah.
Being the Alpine logo, it's so cool. But unfortunate, they just want to cut it. And I think that's it for this
That
episode.
is it. So yes, if you've made it this far through our waffling, I can only thank you, and we hope that you will join us next week because we have plenty more to discuss then.
Indeed, if you follow us on whatever podcast site, so Spotify or on
YouTube,
the YouTube channel where the podcast is also posted there. Alongside that, we have our Instagram account, which posts some stuff during the week and some catch-ups, and we'll be doing other information just throughout the week in between podcast episodes, especially when races actually start to happen. Then follow us there, that'll be great. And join us next time for the second week of testing catch-up, and then some mild predictions and discussions on the constructors' order and what we think is going to happen.
Yeah, basically
before we do our actual predictions.
Yeah, next week we're going to be discussing the lie of the land following testing, where we think the teams roughly are in sort of not necessarily a championship prediction, but definitely where we think they are performance-wise ahead of the season. And then obviously the week after that, we can then get into some actual predictions for the first half of the season. So the next 2 weeks are going to be good, and we hope you can join us.
It should be good.
Until then, it is a goodbye from me.
Yes, in which case, goodbye.